Welcome to the Manifesting Millions podcast. I am your host, Rashida McFerren, and today in the Rich Auntie Life series, we are talking about the age of I is over. But first, like I always tell you to do, I want you to head over to beacons.ai/Rashida McFerrin. Check out our offerings, check out our free guides, check out the courses that we have right now, and then come on back over here and spend some time with us because we about to get to it. First things first, number one, Happy New Year. This is technically our first episode of the new year, and our first episode of the new year sets the tone. I'm coming in with high energy, but we're coming in talking about something that I've just seemed to observe consistently over this last year, especially while producing content, especially while consuming content. I don't necessarily have a consistent flow for the episode because I want to freestyle it because a lot of the feedback are pretty much opinions of my own. We're going to start with talking about the age of I. As being a millennial, an 80s baby, we are called a few things. Initially, we were just Gen Y, and then they switched it to millennials because they couldn't figure us out. This is like early 2010 ish. Then they referenced us as the microwave generation, meaning that we wanted everything put in a microwave and popped out within like 15 to 30 seconds, which is true. We all want we want what we want because when we go after something, we desire a favorable result. There was another one that regular old media. Notice I didn't say social media. I said old media, meaning the generations before us, Gen X, baby boomers, people that just don't understand us, which normally are our parents. They would label us all these different things. The reality is, as we headed into the age of tech, the age of evolution in this modern day reality, tech became a part of our daily. Actually, for us, if you really think back, tech has always been a part of our daily. Like, remember in the early 80s, what were our movies? Think about it. Star Wars, E.T. Like, come on now. So we were the tech babies. I came across something called a Computron, and this was this old school kid computer that Sears engineered in the late 80s. That was like my first tech computer. When I saw it the other day, I was like, oh my God, I have not seen that thing since I was a little girl. It also captured a nostalgia of the feeling of remembering getting that for Christmas one year and making me feel like I was so logged in and connected to something greater, something bigger because I was on a computer. Now it was an old school floppy disk, like it had the little side thing on the edge of it. It looked like the old school Apple computers, which were huge. But I just remember feeling super smart that I could practice my spelling and my math on a freaking computer or what looked like a computer. I was 8, who cares? With that being said, we morph into the age of I because what do we get during our lifetime? iPhones, the me generation, that's the other one. A lot of it was, if you think about it, we're the first generation of not having to experience the social unrest of all the things that the generations before us were going through. And no doubt, I am so thankful for the fighting that my ancestors did for us, for civil rights, for equality, for women. We become the age of not necessarily having to fight the struggle and having that physical manifestation present in like our history. And so we become the age of I. Everything is about me. Everything is mine. Everything is centered and focused around my individuality of how I ascend, how I move forward, how I excel and get ahead of the next person. We are also very much a generation that's centered around competition and competitiveness, which is also where you get the millennial burnout. I have mentioned on this podcast so many times how by the time I launched my business, I was so burnt out. Like my brain was so fried. I didn't even know how to not do. And I remember it was late 2021. I had started really focusing on my health and I had a surgery. And after my surgery, I couldn't technically do anything. My nephew was here taking care of me, helping me with my son, helping drive my son to school because I couldn't drive. I couldn't do anything for like at least like 2 weeks per the doctor's orders. I remember laying in this bed and feeling like it was like the worst thing in the world to assign me to nothingness because I literally did not know what to do with myself. Even in a moment of me just needing to rest and heal my body because I had run it down for the last however many years, right? I literally didn't know what to do with myself. So, you know what I did while I was laying here? I enrolled in courses and started taking classes to learn how to do a new skill or figure out something new. At some point along the journey, I realized that the beauty of nothingness is an amazing thing because it allows you to rest and recharge. We are the generation of doing things our own way, doing it my way. Remember our Usher 10 years? My way. Which was, of course, a remake of Frank Sinatra's I Did It My Way. Just, hip hop style. Because we gotta put a oomph on it. Because that's how we do. One of the things I've observed in my content creation journey as I was sharing things about my story is that while posting things on social media about my story is cute, I was trying to figure out a way to make my podcast, my business, my socials, my identity on the internet, all of it pop off. And I kept on trying. And then what happened was one of the things that I love the most about what I do, which is finance and real estate, specifically on TikTok, because you can't do one without the other, became the center of my platform. And that was the unifying factor. And it's funny because I remember telling my mom, I was like, the thing that I love the most, I took me out of the equation, meaning like my content is not centered around me necessarily. I am splashed throughout my content as I post throughout the year. A potential home buyer or customer seeing this beautiful staircase, which was something that I fell in love with when I first came to Texas back in 2012, and was dedicated and devoted to buying that dream home for my family. It was about me, but it wasn't. And so, while the dominating factor of what unified my content and made it more popular was an initial desire from me, I had to take me out of the equation in order for it to take off. Over the last 6 months, it started right before my son's birthday, and I had gotten the message in regards to how to brand my content, how to center my message around my podcast, which is the Manifesting Millions podcast. I also have the Manifesting Millions Academy, which I'm trying to figure out right now if I'm going to rebrand it into the Rashida AI Academy because I can put all of my content under there, but I don't know yet. I might need to go to my audience and ask them which they prefer, but it seems like the unifying idea of wanting to be a millionaire, wanting to build financial stability, wanting to be wealthy in order to be able to provide for your family is the glue that's holding it together. And I love that because the desires that I had when I was creating my business, my content, my socials, all of it was pretty much sealed together and harmonized by that same factor, that thought. I've always wanted to be financially well off, financially stable, financially independent of a man. It's a whole backstory to that. What I experienced growing up with my mom being a single mom in the 80s, struggling and watching her literally rob Peter to pay Paul and try to still be able to provide. And I always mention real quick that, I was raised by my mom, my grandmother, and my grandfather because they lived right next door to us, or my mom would eventually leave Nashville and come home. I said all that to say that in order for me to serve from a place of authenticity, I had to take me out of the equation, which means that yes, people want authentic content. Yes, people want to see what they can aspire to be. But every single thing that I post is not centered around me, my face, what I'm doing, who I'm talking to, who I'm connecting with, where I'm traveling to. That gets so old so quickly. You start to look like an obsessed narcissist, which is like apparently the trend of our generation. And as I've been on TikTok, I think this is 3 years. It actually may be 4 years in April, and really getting it. Like it really mid to end of last year, right before my son's birthday. I had already started posting about the millionaire content. This is what you do to become a millionaire. You start with what? Buying your dream home, buying real estate. I still believe and will forever believe is a foundational principle in building wealth. Do you have to have a home? No. You can still become a millionaire without having a home if you choose not to own. But because of who I am, where I come from, I grew up on a farm on the land. The land was the thing that built the concept of wealth in my family. And so that's what I know to be true because I've lived it forever and a day and will forever live that well after, right? That is what is instilled in me from my grandparents, my great grandparents, my great great grandparents, my great 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 grandmother. I don't know who the father was. She was um a runaway slave that made it to Tennessee. Again, a story for another day. But as we watch content evolve over the course of this next year, you're going to see more AI. My content is very AI heavy and it's very real heavy for the content that I just go out and record for my real estate because people want to see real homes. I also use AI very strongly since I launched Rashida AI back in May 2023. I really didn't know what I was doing with it at first, and like mid 2024 into 2025 is when I really started to find my groove as far as AI was concerned and how I put it into my brand. Then also, now that AI is evolving so very fastly, how I use it going forward, because now AI is not just a picture or a video. Now it's building systems. Now it's building tasks and doing things that people would do. And I am of the belief as well that in the next year to 2 years, we're going to see our first AI billionaire. Hey, I would love to be that AI billionaire. Period. I am telling you right now, when I'm in the kitchen cooking, my goal is to be that AI billionaire. My name attached with that in history, synonymous for the rest of the days of our lives. Between January 1st and today, which is January 13th, I literally have built probably 10 apps. And I was getting frustrated because I was getting to a point that the app would be built and then it would render errors. And then I couldn't go any further on my phone because your phone is literally a money machine. Your phone is an anytime money machine. I make so much content and so much money on just building stuff on my phone, iPhone, by the way. Well, I go in the other day and I'm in my office and I get on my laptop and I log into Google AI Studio and I run one of the apps that I had put into production, but I don't think I had released to the public yet because I need to figure out some connections for APIs. I got to go back to the little kid on TikTok that's been teaching me how to build apps and stuff because he's brilliant. I love him. He's like 22 or 23. But I go on to it yesterday and I'm sitting there thinking that it's going to give me another error in how I'm running the code for the app. And then it starts pulling the data for it. And I was like, OMG. I I was getting I was getting temporary errors because I was disconnecting from my API because I hadn't released or published. And all I had to do was go on my freaking laptop. That was so frustrating for me yesterday in so many ways, but it was also liberating because it's like, Rashida, girl, look what you have done in the last 13 days alone. And as we begin to release the apps, websites that I've built, it's more like an app as a service that can do a task for you and people can pay to use. As I'm going through and digitizing pretty much everything in my life at this point, like I am a techie. Period. I've always been like that. I am an Aquarius moon, so my mind is always in the future. And I guess I can thank my dad for that because my dad, as challenging as our relationship was, he was always like not on earth to me. He was like always physically present, but his mind would be like always somewhere else talking about the vicissitudes of something. He was a brilliant man. He just really couldn't figure out in this lifetime how to apply his brilliance to his family in order to provide for us. That is always the challenge I had for him. And as of, I guess this month, we're coming up on 1 year of him being with the Lord. And I have done some major healing as far as that is concerned. But anyway, it's not just me taking ChatGPT and just like using it for an image or Grok or Gemini or Claude or Perplexity. Like it's so many of them because all of them have a special uniqueness. It is literally helping me complete tasks. It just makes me so much more efficient as a human being to be able to tap into the brilliance and intelligence of AI, that it is next level. And so as I'm in this kitchen cooking, let her cook, like Glow say, Memphis 10 all day, I am instinctively thinking about what I'm creating, how I'm creating it, and who I'm creating it for, so that when the user on the other end gets to my products, the value of what's in it for me is very apparent and very clear up front because it was literally made for them. And so it's a very singular focus in understanding who I am as a person, what motivates me, what inspires me, what springs me into action, taking that and then decentralizing it to the idea of oneness so that what I am building can serve a greater purpose for people. And so that's what I'm talking about when I mean the age of I is over. That's where we're starting the year. Much progress, so much growth. And as far as content creation, as I'm starting to get to the point that I can pass my content creation journey off to a contractor, because I literally have my strategy in place. It is cemented in stone at this point. And when I say I just checked my creator search insights, we just hit 2.32 million views. And this is over the last 6 months, y'all. What is very important to me is that I stay authentic and connected and real to my message so that it reaches others. And it is taking the concept of I out of it and putting we in place. I remember when I was cheering early on at Tennessee State University, my coach used to say all the time, there is no I in team. There is no I in team. And there are some things that stick with you throughout your life. And that is one of the things that you realize it really is no I in team, because when you take individuals that have their interests and you find the commonality of what their interests and desires are, and you create a product that provides value to them so they can help materialize that product or materialize that desire into a tangible result in real life, that is creating value. And so, after this long, hard year of 2025, it was a challenging year for us. I am starting 2026 with the concept of there is nowhere to go but up from here. I hope you enjoyed this episode. I'm recording on my phone. I'm not really being fancy, but I can't edit on my phone, so I'll have to get on my laptop before I release this episode. It is Tuesday in the DFW area. My son is now walking again. My son had a very football injury in his homecoming game back in September, messed up his knee 3 ways. He had to have his knee rebuilt in 3 different spots: ACL, MCL, and the meniscus. And so he started walking. My Christmas wish was for him to be walking, to hear him coming down our stairs. Again, that's all I cared about over these last 4 or 5 months has been restoration of my son's health and healing. He is now walking again, and I am so grateful and thankful for that. I haven't really talked much about it, but I will have him on the podcast. We've already transitioned into the spring semester. This is his last semester in high school, and so I'm excited about that, but more to come. I just told you basically where my head is for the year. And for once, I sit and listen to like all these people, the fake gurus is what I call them, y'all, cuz after having spent all this money, 5 bands actually invest in all of these quote unquote courses and coaching and mentors and masterminds and all that crap. It's not crap, but some of it wasn't worth the paper it was written on. Do you understand me? And I could have kept my money and put that stuff in ads and it would have made me money. Real talk. But that's neither here nor there. We all got to live through it and make our failures. I have pretty much unfollowed every quote unquote guru that I was following. In my podcast, they're no longer there. I'm going back to basics because what ended up being true for me was what I knew to be true before I started doing all those masterminds and mentorships and stuff. And what works for me as a Black woman in 2026 is not going to be what a Caucasian woman who has made $100 million over her business over the last 10 years. It's not going to be the same. And while they can teach you a system and a message and tell you how to do this and say, hey, buy into my logic, just take my stuff and use it. Girl, that stuff don't work for my culture. That's what I had to realize. And you know what it was? It was last year. My son had played a 7-on-7 game and was 2-3 hours away. And my mom said to me as we were coming back, she was like, Rashida, you need to do what's real to you and what works for you. And if you paid all that money for it and it ain't working, I know you're trying to be committed to it because you paid the money for it. You need to go back to what's working. And I did that like a week later, and it's been up from there. It's up, period. I'm the only one on my account technically because it's like, yes, you can outsource your social media, but you are your authentic message and how that delivers to your customers, your audience, and the people that you connect with. So if I'm one person and I'm already at 2.3 million organically, can you imagine what happens when I go create a bunch of AI agent me's to do what I'm doing now? It's going to quantum leap my results into infinity. That being said, I hope you had an amazing holiday. I hope you got some rest. I hope you spent time with your family. I hope you enjoyed your holiday season as we get back to it. It's technically go time because the 15th is what, 2 days away? And you've had time to reset and get your mind right for the year because let me tell you, last week I just mentally, I just wasn't here yet. I usually give myself that extra week in order to get my head together. And then coming into the next week, I start to ground myself and get back to it. And then by the 15th, I'm usually scheduling my meetings and doing what I need to do in order to move things forward as far as life is concerned. So, like I said, Happy New Year. This year is up. We are going to the moon in our wealth building and how we're building our life and how we're building the lifestyles around us. And yeah, that's where it's at. As always, thank you for listening. If you have enjoyed what you've listened to, please leave us a 5-star review either on Spotify, on Apple, on iHeartRadio, on Amazon. Another thing that happened over the last year, because I had put so much energy in it in 2024, is like the number of podcast networks that we're listed on has grown exponentially. And while that was my intention in 2024, the networks we grew to last year had everything to do with the work that I did the prior year. And so this year we're going to be working on so we can reach more people and put ads on it. Our newsletter, which is up to, I feel like 9,400 people now, had pretty impressive stats from the last year. We had a 42% open rate and the click through rate was like at 2%, which needs some work. And we had some unsubscribes, but that's a part of it. But we're going to keep going and growing, period. Like my goal and my message is to reach as many millennials and Gen Z as I possibly can. If you're touched by it, please come join us. I'm going to continue making content for people like me and people like my son who are coming of age and growing up because that is my specialty in regards to communication and connection right now. It just works really well for us. That being said, thank you for listening, and I will see you in the next episode. Peace.